Look, we've all seen it. You're scrolling through Instagram or TikTok at 11:30 p.m. and you see someone who graduated
Whoa!
high school 3
I can't
years
believe
after you
this.
did. They're in a private jet. They're wearing a watch that costs more than your first 3 cars combined. And you're sitting there, looking at your bank account, thinking, I'm doing everything right. I work hard. I save. Why do I feel like I'm standing still? Here's the thing. Most of what you see online isn't wealth. It's disposable income theater. It's a performance. And because we're human, we compare our behind-the-scenes footage to everyone else's highlight reel. My name is Alexi, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of money and why most people are accidentally sabotaging their future. If you're someone who feels like you're grinding every single day, but the wealthy label still feels light years away, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because look, wealth is not a number in a checking account. Wealth is not a car. Wealth is the ability to ignore the things that don't matter. Today, I want to challenge everything you think you know about being rich. Most people think wealth is $10 million in the bank. Here's what most people don't realize. You can have $10 million and be poor, and you can have $500,000 and be wealthy. Now, you might be thinking, Alexi, that's easy for you to say. 500K doesn't pay for a Ferrari. You're right, but a Ferrari doesn't buy you a Tuesday morning where you don't have to check your email. We're going to look at the 3 specific signs, the psychological and mathematical markers that prove you are actually wealthy, even if you still feel broke. And stick around for sign number 3, because that is where the math gets really interesting, and it's the one thing 90% of people get wrong. Sign 1, the math of the gap. Sign number 1, your gap is growing and you don't care. Let's talk math for a second. In the world of finance, we have 2 numbers, your income and your expenses. The space in between those 2 numbers, that's the gap. Most people,
Oh
when they
no, it's
get a
going up.
raise, they
This is
immediately
getting
move their
worse.
expenses
What do
up
I
to meet
do?
their new income. This is what we call lifestyle creep. If you make $50,000 and spend $48,000, your gap is $2,000. If you get promoted to $100,000, but now you need the Tesla and the $3,000 a month apartment, and you're spending $98,000, look, you haven't actually gotten any wealthier. You're just a more expensive version of the same person. Here's an eye-opening statistic from a recent survey by Lending Club. Nearly 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. But here's the kicker. 32% of people making top-tier money are also living paycheck to paycheck. Read that again. 1 out of every 3 people making top-tier money is one missed paycheck away from total disaster. That isn't wealth. That's a high-speed treadmill. Let's look at person A and person B, for instance. Person A earns $250,000 a year. They have the mansion, the country club membership, and the luxury SUV. Their monthly overhead is $18,000. After taxes, they're basically breaking even. If their company fires them tomorrow, they have exactly 3 weeks before they have to start selling furniture. Person B earns $75,000 a year. They live in a modest apartment, they drive a 7-year-old Toyota that's paid off, and they've mastered the art of stealth wealth. Their monthly overhead is $3,500. They have $60,000 in a high-yield savings account. Who is wealthy? Person B can survive for 17 months without a job. Person A is a slave to their boss. If you have a gap, even if it's just $500 a month, and you're resisting the urge to spend it on things to impress people you don't even like, you are wealthy. This is the psychological force called relative deprivation. You're choosing to feel deprived now so you can be free later. If you see your bank balance growing and you feel a sense of peace rather than a need to go to the mall, that is sign number 1. Sign number 2. You have the power to say no. This is where it gets really interesting. Wealth isn't about what you can buy. It's about what you can avoid. There's a concept in finance called FU money. It's a bit of a crude term, but it's mathematically vital. It represents the amount of money you need to have in order to say no to a toxic boss, a bad business partner, or a life situation that makes you miserable. Most people are trapped in what I call the invisible handcuffs. Think about it like this. Imagine you're at a job you hate. Your boss is a nightmare. They ask you to work through your kid's birthday. If you have $0 in savings, you have to say yes. You don't have a choice. You are an indentured servant to your bills. But if you have 6 months of expenses tucked away in a boring index fund or a savings account, you have the wealth of autonomy. Here's what most people don't realize. The first $10,000 you save is the hardest, but it's also the most powerful. Why? Because it changes your posture. When you have money in the bank, you walk into a room differently. You don't need the deal. You don't need the approval. The analogy. Think of your savings like a personal insurance policy against BS. When you buy a car, you pay for insurance so that if you crash, you're covered. When you save money, you are buying life insurance that covers you if your life crashes into a situation you hate. If you have the ability to walk away from a bad deal, or if you don't feel panicked when the car makes a weird noise because you know you have an emergency fund, you are wealthy. You have purchased mental real estate. You aren't paying rent to anxiety anymore. Now, you might be thinking, Alexi, I only have $5,000 in my emergency fund. That's not wealth. Look, according to the Federal Reserve, 40% of Americans cannot cover a $400 emergency with cash. If you have $5,000, you are more wealthy and more secure than nearly half the population. Stop comparing yourself to the guy on the private jet and start looking at the data. Sign 3, the compound interest tipping point. Sign number 3, and this is the most important one. Your money is making more than your labor. This is the holy grail. This is where we move from working for money to money working for us. Most people believe that to be wealthy, you need to earn a massive salary. But let's look at the math of compounding. Let's say you're 25 years old. You decide to invest $500 a month into a simple S&P 500 index fund. You do this consistently. You don't pick stocks. You don't try to time the market. You just wait. By the time you're 65, assuming a historical 10% average return, that $500 a month has turned into $3.1 million. Now, here's the mind-blowing part. In that final year, from age 64 to 65, your account grows by about $280,000 just from interest. That's $23,000 a month. At that point, your money is earning more than a surgeon makes just by sitting there. You are no longer trading your time for pieces of paper. You are trading your capital for freedom. The psychological forces. The reason most people never get here is because of hyperbolic discounting. This is a fancy psychological term for, I want a cookie now instead of a cake tomorrow. Our brains are wired for survival, not for the stock market. We want the dopamine hit of the new iPhone today. But wealth is the practice of delayed gratification. If you have $50,000 invested right now and it earns 8% this year, it just made $4,000. Did you have to wake up at 6 a.m. to earn that $4,000? No. Did you have to deal with a commute? No. That $4,000 is free labor. Once you reach the point where your investments cover even 10% of your monthly bills, you have reached a level of wealth that most people will never see. You have a silent employee working for you 24/7. Addressing objections and action steps. Now, look, I know what some of you are saying. Alexi, inflation is high. My rent just went up. How am I supposed to build the gap when I'm just trying to survive? I get it. It's hard out there. But here's the cold, hard truth. You cannot out-earn a bad spending habit. If you don't learn to manage $1,000, you will never be able to manage $100,000. It's a muscle. Here are your immediate action steps. Audit the subconscious leaks. Go through your bank statement. Find the $15 subscriptions you forgot about. Find the convenience fees you're paying because you're too lazy to meal prep. This isn't about being cheap. It's about being intentional. Automate the gap. Treat your savings like a bill. If you owe the electric company $100, you pay it. Treat your future self like the electric company. Automate $50, $100, or $500 to go straight from your paycheck to an investment account. If you never see it, you won't miss it. Redefine your status symbols. Stop trying to look rich. Real wealth is quiet. Real wealth is a paid-off house and a high-yield savings account that lets you sleep at night. Look, wealth isn't a destination. It's a mindset of abundance over appearance. If you have a growing gap between what you make and what you spend, if you have the cash to say no to things that drain your soul, and if you have even $1 invested that is compounding while you sleep, you are wealthy. Stop letting the internet convince you that you're failing because you're not 22 with a Ferrari. The guy in the Ferrari is probably stressed about his lease payment. You are building a foundation that won't crack when the wind blows. This stuff takes time. It's boring. It's not flashy, but it's the only way to actually win. If this video helped you shift your perspective, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel out more than you know. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What is one rich thing you've stopped buying so that you can actually become wealthy? I read as many as I can. Go build your gap. Go buy your freedom. I'll see you in the next one.